Good morning. Thank you for being here after 2 busy days. My name is Nicolas Jasinsky. I work for Atos Consulting France, and I'm going to share with you one of my significant experiences dealing with workforce planning or activity planning in order to calculate revenue and margin. We start with a short introduction, and then we'll jump to a specific case with the pain points, the solutions we brought, the benefits they got, and then we'll have a quick look at the perspectives and the key points of the implementation project. So, who are we? In just a few words. So, Atos is quite a big company. Some of you may know Atos already, so more than 100,000 employees, generating more than 20 billion euros as a revenue. Our key offerings are automation and robotics, like we just spoke about, digital workplace, application transformation management, and so on. I belong to the EPM practice, Enterprise Performance Management, and myself and my 20 consultants are working on EPM projects, bringing technical knowledge and also business expertise. We also built partnerships, especially with high-skilled and high-level companies, such as EPM Consulting, and we cooperate on projects, and all of them were concluded with success. So it's quite a good partnership. Why is EPM and why are tools like Board so important? In fact, the corporate management culture is deeply changing. More and more people are today involved into the management and into the steering processes. They have to face new responsibilities, and they need to be assisted for these new challenges because they have more and more data to cope with, more and more information that are extracted from the internal systems and even from external systems, and they need help. How to avoid to be overwhelmed by such an amount of data? How to pick the good one to be able to understand, to analyze the current situation? How to pick the good one to be able to predict and simulate the future? And to do that, they need techno. But which one? How to select the good one? Because there are lots always changing with new functionalities. And our assignments are to answer these questions and helping our customers to increase their maturity level. We've built a maturity scales, quite a simple one, just to highlight that people can increase their maturity. Some of them start with a very basic level, barely knowing where they are and what they can do. But the point is to bring them at a higher level, helping them to better control, to better plan, to better analyze, and to make better decisions. In the end, the point is to maximize the efficiency by improving the results. I mean, more revenue, more margin, more market shares, more growth, to reduce the cost, to improve the quality, or even sometimes to shorten the time. EPM and Board applications can be applied to any functional area. Every blue box here shows you the different application possibilities. And as you can see, it's possible to have it in any department of the company, finance, HR, sales, and so on. And all these boxes can be connected to the other one. So the point is to start with quite a simple module, a simple function, and to widen it in order to create a more integrated process and to bring more business value. We've done that with quite a lot of clients in every sector, big clients, small clients. Okay, I will not go longer on that. Let's jump to the case I'd like to share with you. We're going to talk about a customer whose work is to sell and deliver professional services which are delivered by skilled resources. So they have two stakes. The first one is to build the best offerings portfolio. They have to remain at the state of the art. They have to innovate every time. And to do that, the offerings portfolio is always evolving. And the second stake, as a consequence, is to build the most suitable workforce, meaning to hire the right skills, competencies, knowledge in adequation with that offerings portfolio. And to do this, they have to plan their activity for the next months. They do this at the profit center level, meaning the lowest level of the organization, all of that being aggregated among the hierarchy and to the top level. They also have to plan it at the skill level, like director, expert, senior, and so on, to be also able to identify which populations have to be especially handled and carefully checked. And they also plan on a monthly basis. Even a part of the company do the planning at a resource level, okay? So with that, they plan their, what we call FTE, full-time equivalent, for the next months. Once this is done, they apply a set of hypotheses. The first one is the staffing rate, meaning the ratio any resource is able to work on an assignment and to invoice to a customer. And beside that, they apply a combination of standard rates and discount rates that gives the unit price that will be invoiced to the customer. If we put the activity, the staffing rate, and the prices together, we then get the revenue. And if we apply also a salary grid, we get the gross margin. All of that seems quite simple, of course, but believe me, behind that, we have a lot of little rules, specificities we had to care about. Why do they do this? It's because they have a backlog, an amount of orderings they already have, and they need to deliver and to invoice, and they have their activity plan. And the gap between these two figures is what they call the too fine. And if the too fine is too big, they need to boost their commercial activities. So it's important for them to anticipate that. In the opposite, if the activity is not high enough and the backlog is high, they need to launch recruitment campaign to be able to face their new engagement. They also need to identify which are their growing offerings to be able to promote them and to massively invest in them. And finally, once they have valorized their activity, they are able to compare it with their ambition and be able to check if they're going to meet it or not. So planning the activity and valorize it is crucial for them. I think the activity is quite clear, but what were their pain points? First of all, we made a diagnosis of the process, and there was no reforecast. I mean here that they prepared their plan 6 months before the fiscal year with a quick review just before the start of the new fiscal year, and then they didn't touch at all at this plan. No refresh, no adjustment of the target, no refining. It means that they didn't proceed to any gap analysis with the actuals, so they just put the plan aside and forgot it as soon as it was made. There was also no clue about internal subcontracting flows. I mean here that profit centers or business unit needs now to cooperate to catch new big contracts and to be able to deliver them. And as every business unit is preparing his activity plan alone, there is no synchronization with the other one, and there's the really lack of value in the global plan, okay? So as a consequence, BU responsibles are not really committed to their plan and not really involved in its execution. We also investigated on the planification method, and we discovered that there were some strong mistakes, such as, for example, a rough estimation of the starting point. As I told you, they start to prepare the plan 6 months before, so they have to anticipate their new starting point. And they made that, you know, with very blurred rules, not really widely applied. So I would say the starting point was not a good one. And after that, they just planned it in a flat way with no consideration of the seasonality. So then it was difficult for them to consider it as a reference as well. On top of that, they didn't really take the investment into account, because as they have to renew their offerings portfolio very often, they need to keep some people apart and ask them to work on new offerings. These people should not generate any invoicing or revenue, and that impacts the plan. They didn't do that, so a new layer of mistakes. And in the end, as I told you, business units do not apply the same rules. So another consequence is to say that all the plan was put aside. Finally, the tools. They had a profusion of Excel files. For each business unit, there was a file, one file, and sometimes several ones, because they had to track several versions. So very, very complicated for the controllers to keep all of them up to date and to aggregate them, okay? At the conclusion, a strong reduction of the trust, because a lot of people didn't believe that the latest data were inside the aggregated view. So really difficult to set this as a reference again. They also had no help to track the process. If we take a controller who has to follow 50 business units, it's difficult for him to know, okay, I've caught 30 files, I need 20 files. Some of them have been validated, some of them not, so really difficult to know where they are. So a process fully manual with very laborious actions and a high risk of errors. The consequence of all of that is that, of course, they cannot really steer their process. There is a high risk to lose money because they may invest on the wrong offerings or make wrong decisions. They are not really alerted when you have a big difference between the plan and the actuals. And the management, because there's no refresh of the data, remains quite blind with the offerings, which are quite new and can be fluctuating. That's the reason why they decided to launch a new project. Of course, they were aware that they would need a new process, first of all, that they need a common and unique calculation method, of course, and they also agreed they had to remove all these Excel files and to replace that with a strong solution. That solution had to be, most of all, ergonomic and user-friendly, because most of the users are not really daily users, we're more occasional users, so they need to be really helped to use the tool. A solution that allows also fully automation, because the business users are also busy people. They do not have a lot of time. They cannot waste their time, so they need to be also helped to write quickly and to work quickly with it. And in the end, of course, performance and security, because there are some critical data inside. The point was to clearly raise the maturity level onto the top level. So, what were the solutions? First of all, we built a new plan, a new process for the plan. We created the rolling forecast, that did not exist before. At the beginning, they only had 2 milestones. The first one for the plan creation, the second one for the plan update. And then we've added the rolling forecast 3 times during the year. The point here is to start from the actual data, so the good ones, to give an overview of what will happen for the next months, the remaining months of the fiscal year, and then to jump with a good starting point, this time, to the next plan. They have to do that 3 times a year. That's the reason why they really need performance, automation, and ergonomics. We also worked on a new method with a clear sequence of the different actions to be performed. The first one is to set the hypothesis. So the central functions push some hypotheses for the discount rate, the standard rates, the staffing rate, and so on. And every business unit is able to adapt it to its own business and then to put its own value. Once this is done, they can collect the current FTE, meaning for each business unit, how many resources do they have of each skill level. So they start from that and then can add the movements. I mean, which are the people next leaving, which are the people that will be promoted with an internal mobility, recruited, leavers, and so on. All of this impacts the global FTE picture and is fully and automatically calculated in the system. Once they have the big picture, calculations can be performed. So they apply the hypothesis I was talking about, so the staffing rate and the discount rate, and they get the revenue, the gross margin, and some KPIs. All these figures can be read at BU level, but also at any aggregated level. So in just one click, the top management now gets a real reference of the next financial figures. All of this is, of course, only the theory, because we are drawing a process, and we're just writing some business rules for the method, but we need a tool. And there was a hard selection for that. Board, of course, was among the competitors, but there were other ones. A strong competition was led, and they won, thanks to their ability to secure the data, their ability for the BI, and the look and feel capabilities. You can see here the homepage of the tool we built for them with the main steps of the process. The first one is the hypothesis setting. The second one is the entry of movements for the remaining months, I mean the forecast, and the budget, which is the fiscal year after. Then the reporting that shows the valorization, and in the end, of course, workflows. Maybe a quick look at the screens, just to show you how it looks like. For the hypothesis, you have here an example. Every hypothesis is made with a sheet, okay? So you'll have one with the standard rate, another one with the staffing rate, and so on. They have the view on the previous hypothesis they have used, and a comparison between the one proposed by the central functions and the one pushed by the BU itself, in just, a single look. For the movement, it's quite the same template. You have also a sheet for every movement type. So a first sheet for departures and recruitments, another one for promotions, another one for mobility, another one for advancement, and so on. The first columns are showing here the actual position with the current FTE belonging to any business units. And based on that, people have to enter here their flows, meaning, okay, I will have 2 people leaving, 3 people coming here, 2 people jumping, and so on. The right side of the screen is automatically calculating and immediately calculating the results. So the point here is to give at any time to the business users a full view on where they are and what are the impacts of their entry. So we take any sheet into account when we calculate this, and on top of the screen, as you can see here, we've put some labels showing their KPIs and helping them to understand what they are entering. I forgot something. After just entering some figures, so it's quite easy for them, they just have to click on that button here. It's a really important point because that single button allows to perform the full calculation of the tool. So when they click here, the picture, FTA picture, is taken into account by board, and then the valorization is made. And you have here the revenue, the margin, with or without investments, and you also have some KPIs recalculated instantly. You can see that for any business unit again, at higher level, if you need them, and you can also filter by skill level if you need that. By clicking on the other sheets, you can see some detail and really check the performance level of every skill population. You can, for example, see that your seniors are not really working at the size you want, at the ratio you want, or are not really invoiced at the level you want. You can check everything in detail. You also have some gap analysis graphs, such as this one, showing the difference between a starting point here, for example, today, okay, in my business units, and my ending point here, for example, at the end of the year. And I see all the differences between the starting point and the ending point, helping me to understand how my population will evolve. Last screen, but not the least, the workflow. The workflow is really important for them and quite complicated because it's structured with 5 levels and with quite complicated rules. Submission of figures can be done at the lower level, I mean the business units level, but also at the level just above, because sometimes it's not the business unit responsible who enters the figures, but his boss, okay? So we have that rule. Every level has to validate the figures from the level below. So we have to manage validation to go further and rejection to go backwards. We also have to manage the data lock, because once a submission is done, you have to lock, and when you reject, you have to unlock. In some cases, business units are directly attached, linked to a top level with no level in between. And then we have to create a shortcut for these ones to avoid to validate at any level. So we took into account a big amount of rules to make it simple to read, just colors. You see here in yellow it's submitted, in green it's validated, in blue is pending, you have to work on that, and that's all. And everything with security, because any user clicking on the table and submitting with those buttons will never destroy that picture and keep, accuracy and reliability inside this workflow. So we've put a lot of effort on that, but it's really, really, really important for them. I talked about FTEs, okay, which are valorized with the hypothesis, but of course, this could be applied to any activity. We could apply this to projects, to products, to services, to anything else. So that mechanisms could be applied to any activity. Which are the benefits of this solution? We saw a part of them, of course. Oh, sorry. They have a new process, they have a new method, they have a new tool, but also they have some additional benefits that are only allowed by a tool like Board. And they really appreciate them. The first one is the data analysis capabilities. First of all, they can perform every comparison, all the comparison they want. They can compare their budget with the forecast, forecast 1 with forecast 2, with actuals. Okay, they just have to pick the different versions. They can compare the current fiscal year with the previous one or the one from the week before. No problem with that. But they also can do the comparison with the organization structure. I mean here, they can simulate the application of the organization they had the year before. So it's really crucial if you want to perform some pro forma comparison, and that is allowed. So look at the current figures with the last year organization, or look at the figures from last year with the current organization. They can do anything they want. Another data analysis, which is really appreciated, is the drill down. Because when we collect the actual data, we collect them at a really deep and low level. It means that for any figures you can see in the actuals, you have the name of the resources working, the project they worked on, the client who was invoiced, and of course, the business sector. Really, really important for them also. Another point, another benefit they really love is the ergonomics. Of course, they have some control managers, fine, but most of the users are business users who will do the plan and the rig forecast 4 times a year and regularly check their actuals. We performed doing only one button to click. So it was not so easy to perform, but okay, we succeeded. We've put the label strict I talked about, and we also created a path, okay, a clickable path, helping them to navigate into the tool very easily and to jump from the first step to the second step. So I mean here, with only those 3 points, you have an easy solution that even do not need any documentation. It's intuitive. The last point I'd like to highlight here is the security. Security was a criteria to select Board, and of course, we have applied it carefully. We applied it with a workflow, because data is locked once the submission is done. We also worked with the classical security, entity accesses, and also screen accesses, but we used the Q blocks that assure the client that only authorized people will have an access to critical data such as wages. So very strong for them and to be highlighted. Which are the perspectives? For the moment, we only worked on the orange box, which is called activity plan, with the FTE and their valorization. But we have some blue box we have to work on for the next months. The first one is the customer and project portfolio. I mean here that they need to work on their orderings, to be able to manage, the termination dates, to manage the amount of people working on them. So to have a fine view of the working plan and the comparison between the portfolio and the activity plan will clearly give the two find. Another box we have to work on is the annual budget. Of course, the activity plan generating the revenue and the gross margin will feed this annual budget, but we have to add all the other expenses and charges. The business plan is also in the roadmap and will interact with the annual budget. It is a 3-year plan made at a higher level, of course, but with specific dimensions, such as the business sectors, the clients, and the offerings. And in the end, we have to create a focus on the IT budget because they would like to streamline in a better way these expenses, and we have to build a dedicated application for that. So we still have some work on the global map for these clients. And I should say even if we fill with the blue box, we will still have other perspectives possible. The first one could be the supplier's management here, because when they prepare their plan, sometimes they already know they have to work with subcontractors, and they can maybe better manage them, knowing at the beginning how much they will cost, how much they will send them, and so on. We could also have some HR application. First one for the reward management. A major part of the population here, of the resources here, is having bonuses. So they need to have targets, a check of the completion of the targets, and in the end, a bonus calculation that could be taken into account for the payroll costs that would give, I should say, a better calculation of the gross margin that can be so here. And to finish here, of course, some skill management, because they see a lot of new resources with strong capabilities, strong competencies, strong skills, and some of them really need to be carefully followed and should not leave the company. So that module can also be a good opportunity. I'd like to finish maybe that presentation with some key points, takeaway or outputs, like I heard. We built that first module very quickly because we only took 3 months to do it, including the design phase, the implementation phase, and the testing phase. And we worked with between 3 and 4 experts on the board solution. So it was quite a challenge, and we did succeed because we're live now. We also took away some best practices I'd like to share with you. The first one is, even from the beginning, have a global understanding and a global view of the ambition you want to fulfill. It's a better way to prepare a right data model. You should also iteratively work with the clients because you need his feedback, to know if you are going the good way, and sometimes just by seeing the way his rules are implemented, this can help him, to adjust them or to go further. So interactivity with the clients are really crucial. Always start with easy rules. It's quite easy to say, but hard to do. It's better to start with a majority of the case and add complexity later, rather than try to do all the possibility on the first attempt. Handle with the full data lifecycle, because once the data are inside board, okay, it's fine, no problem, because with the security levels, okay, everything is all right. But you anyway have to extract them from a source system and to transport them until board. And all this has to be also considered if you want to avoid any risk or possibility of security breakdown. Work as soon as possible with the true data. If you start with theoretical or fake data, okay, it's fine. It gives you a good idea of what will happen. But true data gives you a good point on the data quality you'll have further, and on the control you should implement with the data readers. And finally, last but not least, administrators of the solution should be considered as classical users. I mean here that sometimes we just think about feasibility of such a functionality or a screen or anything. If feasibility is okay, let's go for that. But that can be a nightmare afterwards for the administrator. So we have to set something manageable for the administrator to avoid him to spend all his life, correcting and helping from backwards the business users. So, as you understood, we're just at the start of a big journey. The client is really satisfied today with the solution. He wants to go further, and we are really happy to do this with a solution like Board. I just finished my presentation.